texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine, messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power, and I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.
Welcome again to Street Talk. My name is Ahmad Sakaraki. And on Street Talk, we did political, social, and economics here in Michigan, the U.S., and abroad. Now, tonight joining me,
Dennis Burnside.
Paget Maynard.
Okay, man, we've got a lot to talk about. So what you want to dig into first?
Well, I want to talk about this documentary that was held this weekend, yesterday as a matter of fact,
Okay.
by a group of Lansingites who wanted to document the destruction of the black community to make way for 496. In the documentary, I saw so many people that I knew. My late Aunt Helen, who died at over 100 years old, was interviewed. You saw people in there like Greg Eaton, Joel Ferguson, Kenny Turner was in there, Adolph Burton, all people that lived in that community and witnessed the destruction of a thriving black community with the justification that they were going to get rid of a ghetto and give people a chance to move elsewhere so they could put a highway through. So they bisected all these streets, dead-ended many of them, and destroyed 800 homes and businesses, moved thousands of people out of beautiful homes, in many cases paid for, into different red-lined areas around Lansing, like primarily the south side, and destroyed a vibrant culture and a vibrant community. And we've seen this all over, not only the state of Michigan, but all over the United States. But it really hit home watching that documentary. And that's where this shirt comes from. If you can see that at the bottom, it says they even took the dirt.
They did.
They even took the dirt. One of the guys said he went home and where his home used to be to try to just witness the destruction. And he was so disoriented that he couldn't even tell where his house used to be. And his comment was, they took the dirt.
When I come to Lansing, man, Walnut Street, run right across at that time was Main Street, and it was houses all in there. You know, all in there was houses, and there were no raggedy houses.
Oh no.
No. You know.
Dr. Mother Taylor said that one of the tragedies was that many of these people had paid off their houses or very close to paying off their houses because you had people coming up during the migration that happened from the south to the north at that time. And they had these beautiful homes with wooden staircases and wooden floors and multiple staircases and fireplaces and garages. The American dream. Children able to sleep out on the porch if they wanted to. It was a very safe, quiet community. You had pharmacies. You had, I'm saying multiple pharmacies. You had multiple grocery stores. You had physician offices, law offices. You had dry cleaners because most of the white dry cleaners in Lansing wouldn't take black customers. So you had multiple dry cleaners. You had this ecosystem that was thriving where children were growing up happy and safe among their family and friends that was just taken away from them in a way that was initially surreptitious. They didn't. As they were planning this, they began to plan this in 1958, and they didn't let this out until the early 60s, around 63, 64, what they were going to do, and they started the destruction in 1965. And you had these people being, in many cases, ripped off. A man by the name of Cullen DuBose, who's an engineer, and I forget the other brother's full name. I think his last name was Wilcox. They had connections within MDOT.
Okay.
And they knew what the plan was to not, when you declare eminent domain, you're supposed to give market value for the property that you're seizing for the good of the community.
Yeah.
Well, they're giving these people pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
Many of these people, this is their first home. They didn't have an education that was sophisticated enough to let them know what their rights were. And Mr. Wilcox and Mr. DuBose were knocking on doors, going door to door, telling these people, don't sign anything, don't do anything until you hear from our real estate conglomerate, and we're going to get you guys fair value. But again, you had so many horrific stories. Like there was a man by the name of Spagnola, Frank Spagnola, who owned a store in the neighborhood, and he was very friendly. He comes from a pretty prominent Lansing family. His brother was a doctor. When I was a young pharmaceutical rep, I used to call on him. Very, very fair-minded man. And he decided he wanted to sponsor a football team because Lansing had youth football, but they didn't allow black players to play. They had no black teams. So he sponsored a team, all black. And Joe Ferguson made the comment, he kind of laughed. He said, when we put our money together, we didn't have enough money to give all the kids hip pads. We didn't wear hip pads. We had a fast team anyway. That just made us faster. They were undefeated. They couldn't be beat. And so I don't know if you remember the late Dr. Harrison.
Oh, yeah.
Who's a legend in Lansing.
Yeah, he used to be my doctor.
Dr. Harrison walked into this store. I take that back. It wasn't Dr. Harrison. It was the first black dentist in the area. Oh man, his name is escaping me now. His Kennedy, the dentist Kennedy. He's standing there because on Monday mornings he'd go in there and get some coffee and whatnot and go on to his practice. And he's talking to Mr. Spagnola, and the phone rings. And he can hear this woman berating him. And she's telling him if he doesn't stop sponsoring these N-words, they're going to burn down his store and burn down his house. And he said he was absolutely stunned. He hung up the phone and relayed the comments to the dentist, and he said, hey man, welcome to our world. We get that every day. That's the kind of environment that we're living in.
Oh, yeah.
Just because these children want to play football, just because these people want to live the American dream, it was taken from them.
Yeah, well, one of the things is when I come to Lansing, the West Side had everything you needed. It was two stores, one big store at right by Ionia. It wasn't the one that
Spagnola owned.
Later on. Yeah. This was early. It was a big store, grocery store. I forget the people's name who owned it, and further down south on MLK now, but they were like it was Italian owned one grocery store. Then this lady owned a big restaurant right down from O's. Then going the other way, there were two gas stations.
Johnny's Records, which was legendary. Where you could get tickets to the event. You could order the latest fashion from a catalog. They said that Friendship Baptist Church was built and opened about 6 years before the destruction. And at that time, Main Street and St. Joe were pedestrian-friendly streets. And you see people either walking to Union or Friendship, two churches that still exist to this day, although both have moved. and you'd see women in their Sunday finest. They said it looked like a fashion show.
Yeah.
With the church hats on
Yeah.
and the matching dresses and shoes, and children playing, and you know, you had like you were saying, restaurants.
Oh yeah.
Children were talking about how they could pick fruit off the tree on their way to Lincoln. Lincoln School was like a community center where you not only had elementary, middle school education, but you also had adult education. You had community activities. Ken Turner made the comment in the documentary that 14 or 15 blocks had everything that you needed. You could walk one direction or another and get anything that your house needed. Whatever it was, a plumber. You know, some clothes dry clean, some fresh produce. It was a thriving community that was deliberately destroyed
and
by people who didn't have anything other than their own self-interest.
I got to Lansing in 1980, and I have seen some property. You were talking about these houses. You could tell they were the class of the day. I've been inside a few, and when you look at the work, the woodwork in there, I mean, this thing was class. You know? And I guess some people thought that was too good for these guys.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of that.
You see,
there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that jealousy and resentment.
Oh yes.
That these people are living so well.
And something I see happening here is that whenever you have a thriving black community, all of a sudden there has to be a road coming through there.
Happens all over.
Divvy up the thing.
You can look in just in the state of Michigan, Paget. It happened in Muskegon. It happened in Grand Rapids. It happened in Saginaw. It happened in Flint. It happened in Detroit. It happened, of course, in Lansing, what we're talking about. In fact, the only black community I can think of that wasn't bisected by a freeway is a town I grew up in, Kalamazoo. The freeway was too far south, and the black community was on the north side. But, and they showed a map where this happened nationwide. You know, one of the, you guys may remember when President Biden announced his infrastructure deal, he said one of the things he wanted to correct was the destruction of many black neighborhoods by these highways coming through. He wanted to try to remedy that with this new infrastructure bill. And at that time, you heard people talking about how this neighborhood used to be so peaceful and quiet. I had a garden, I had my children here. Now I've got this noisy highway over here, the pollution's in the air, I'm sick, my grandchildren are sick. It's been an absolute horrendous thing that's happened to our people. Because of just, let's call it what it is, just unsparing, undiluted racism. That's all it's been.
Period.
That's all it is.
And when you look, like Denny said, in every, I mean, all over the U.S. You know.
And you know what really got me, Ahmad, not to interrupt you, but there was a gentleman in the documentary who, with his brothers, and I can't remember the man's name, but I've met him before, and I bet if you guys got to see him, when you see the documentary, you'll recognize him. They had a business. He and his brothers owned a business. And he said they saved their money. They didn't spend much of their money, and they paid cash for this location in the community where they were told it would not be impacted by the highway, and that would be zoned for commercial development. So they put all their money into buying these two houses. They didn't have enough money to hire people to tear it down. They had to do it themselves, nail by nail with hammers. They tore down these houses, they readied the property, and what their plan was to build a plaza, to take some of those stores that had been in the community and move them all into one central location. He said when they got done, they went back there to get their permit to build, they were denied. They were told, well, there's been a change, there's gonna be an exit there. We can't allow you to build there. Of course, an exit was never built there. They lost every penny. He said he cried himself to sleep for weeks. It just wiped them out, him and his brothers, who again were pursuing the American dream, pulling themselves up by their bootstraps, relying on themselves, not asking for help from the government. All the things that these right wingers like to tell us to do as they take the money from the government, as they get the set asides and the handouts. They tell us our problem is we don't want to work for ourselves. We don't have the imagination to do these things. And then you can see episode after episode after episode after episode. It's that where our communities have been destroyed. Have been destroyed in a way. One more thing I want to tell you about my Aunt Helen Glass. Was talking about her husband, Sonny, who I met very briefly. He passed away about the time my ex-wife and I started dating. So I only met him a time or two. He was an elderly man at that time. But they had been given just a few weeks to gather their things because they were said, if you don't get it out, your furniture is going to be set outside. We're going to tear the house down. So get the things out of there that you really value. He said that she said he was so despondent. He said, I don't have the strength. I don't have, because he had put so much into that beautiful house that they had that he just didn't have the energy to go in there and pull out those things that he put into that house.
It's a shame that people have to go through things like that after working hard, and then you got the gall to say, I'm lazy.
Well, you know that.
Ain't that some nerve? I worked the fields all day. I planted your sugar cane, I harvested the sugar, did the same thing with your cotton and tobacco. I walked behind the mule from sun up to sundown for no pay.
Right.
For hundreds of years. And then the myth that's conveyed to the community is black people don't have any ambition, are lazy.
Well, see,
it's infuriating.
I was watching this thing the other night. But anyway, in what was it, 18 something. I'm thinking it was right after slavery was abolished, or before. Anyway, you know, there was 11 blacks in the Senate. You know.
Oh, during Reconstruction. Yeah.
And
we are there today.
Yeah. And so then come along the Klan and all these other different groups.
Yeah, it was the compromise of 1876.
Yeah.
The Democrats, who were the Southern racist whites at that time, thought they won the election. I think their candidate was, I want to say Tillman, but I could be wrong on that. But they wanted their candidate to take the White House. The Republicans said Johnson won. So we'll tell you what, if you let us inaugurate Johnson into the White House, we'll remove the federal troops from the South who are keeping you from terrorizing and bullying these newly freed African Americans. So they removed the federal troops. The Klan was formed, and they went on a terrorist
do whatever you like with
that lasted until the 60s, and in many cases it's still going on. It was just sheer terrorism and brutality.
And they
homegrown terrorism.
Absolutely.
And they began to.
There's a joke that Chris Rock did a few years ago. It rings true to me. He said, "Man, y'all walking around here scared of Al Qaeda. Man, I ain't scared of Al Qaeda. I'm scared of Al Cracker." And there's some historical truth in that. Our terrorism didn't come with a different language and a different access from a different part of the world. It came from right in our own backyard. Our neighbors.
Well, that's why
non-melanated neighbors.
That's why Hitler and his people copied. They copied what was happening here in the U.S.
Yes, they did.
Hold a second. Hitler.
Yes.
Learned from America.
Yes. Hitler studied the U.S. apartheid system.
Think seriously about that. Because people right now are looking at what's going on here in other countries, and they are going to be doing some of the same thing.
And you can move it on to what just happened last week with the Supreme Court. Led by Clarence Uncle Tom. They said that affirmative action with respect to race for admissions at elite universities was unconstitutional. But
he got all of it.
Oh yeah, Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas benefited first to get
almost from both.
to get into a Catholic high school, then into Holy Cross, then into Yale Law School, then into EEOC, where he did everything he could to undermine their mission, Equal Opportunity Commission. They wanted him in there so he could undermine. And this is, a lot of people don't know this. There were 10 or 11 black women who turned that job down because they were given the marching orders. Look, what we want you to do is undermine. And they wouldn't take it.
Right.
Oh, Clarence was happy to. So Clarence Thomas goes on to the Supreme Court, and you can see the damage he's doing. So they're saying that if you have geographic diversity, you know, people from small towns up in the UP, if you have economic diversity, if you have athletic ability, if you have music ability, we'll give you extra points for those things. We'll give you extra points if your daddy donated money here. We'll give you extra points if your granddaddy went here, your grandmama went here. That diversity's fine. But if we decide to elevate those people who have been historically discriminated against and had their communities destroyed for dozens of years, the Hispanic brothers and sisters, the black brothers and sisters, we're going to say that's unconstitutional, that's unfair for the rest of the society.
I would
that
like
was
them
just
to
passed
show
last
me.
week.
I would like them to show me what part of the Constitution it's violating, because I don't think they're going to find it.
Well,
they come out and say anything, and nobody challenges it because the Supreme Court is supreme, and what they say is law.
Well, you know, when you got a bunch of blacks out here agreeing with a bunch of stuff that they doing.
I wouldn't say a bunch. I'll say a few key coons. That's what I would say.
Okay. Okay. We say that, but that's the thing that always. That always points a negative to us, you know. When we got blacks who, like the guy from South Carolina, who every time somebody says something about blacks you shouldn't do this to blacks, or blacks should be doing this.
Talk about Tim Scott. He says racism doesn't exist anymore. Tim Scott will lay out.
Stupid.
Tim Scott ain't stupid. Tim Scott is evil. Tim Scott will stand there in front of an all-white audience and give all these examples of racism that he's had in his life. That he had to come. He talked about the fact one time he was saying that I got stopped 12 times.
No, 17.
17 times by cops because I was driving a knock. Ain't that racism, Tim? He goes example after example all the time, but he gets up there and shucks and jives and soft shoes and yassa bosses and says it's okay. And they say, well, see, he's a good one. But see, my point is, for every one Tim Scott, there's probably 500 Ahmad Chakarakis, Patchett Maynards, Dennis Burnside, who know what the system is and know how it's used against us. And we're not willing to sell out our people in order for our own self-aggrandizement, like Clarence Uncle Thomas, like Conda Skeezer Rice, like Tim Scott. We won't do that. But they'll put those people, they'll elevate them in a position that allows them to sell out their own for their own self-advancement.
How could you sleep at night knowing full well you're doing everything to undermine your own people?
It don't bother them.
As a matter of fact,
Clarence
Thomas walks around angry if you point out his hypocrisy. He's got something going on inside his head that
I don't think
some
he believes anymore that he's black.
Oh, I think he knows he's black.
You know,
I don't think he just believes he's black.
He's a good one.
He knows he's black, but he doesn't believe it. The way he's acting, it's hard to say.
And on top of that, he's a liar. He's a hypocrite. He goes around the world with billionaire money on private jets, going to these exclusive, exotic vacations, and then he'll turn around and tell you publicly, oh, I like to go to Walmart parking lots in a camper and be with the regular folk. That's where I'm most comfortable. Oh, really?
Regular.
So you took a Learjet to I don't know, Cut and Shoot, Arkansas to park in the Walmart parking lot in the camper? Is that what you telling me, player? Come on, man. You know, so he plays that game in a way that allows them to say, yeah, you're good with Clarence. I wish more were like you. In other words,
but anyhow, I have a couple of cases coming up, so keep your eyes open for that.
And then we find out Alito's on the tape.
Oh yeah.
We find out that Robert's wife is benefiting from $10 million to refer lawyers to these white gumshoe law firms that have business before the court. We find the same thing out. Just on and on and on. These people are corrupt.
Yeah.
And they're deciding our laws in a way that completely undermine the Warren Court, the most impactful court of the 20th century.
Yes.
Primarily stocked with Republicans.
Well,
Warren was a Republican.
Yeah.
And then the biggest insult is you have one of the greatest Supreme Court justices of all time, the first black Supreme Court justice replaced by Clarence Thomas, the likes of Clarence Thomas, who was a mediocre student all the way, is a mediocre man, and has no business whatsoever being there, is standing in the shoes of the great Thurgood Marshall. Well, it's just a shame.
Well, I was telling the guy a few days ago that not only we got the Supreme Court set up the way it is, we got people on there who's only early 50s.
Oh, yeah.
So for the next 20, 25, 30 years,
they're
stuck with them.
All these things that they are changing and everything now.
You're stuck with them?
Yeah.
Thank the Heritage Foundation.
Yeah.
They put a plan into play a long time ago when you had Supreme Court justices saying we're going to determine law based on what the Constitution says, with fear nor favor to the wealthy, fear nor favor to the advantage. We're going to look at the Constitution. It says you cannot constitutionally deny people their rights. Yeah. You can't tell people where they can live. You can't tell people where they can worship, how they love, who they marry. You can't do those things anymore. And the Heritage Foundation went to work, and they started grooming these mediocre law students in law school and placing them in positions where, as they moved up through the system, they could be selected and put into the Supreme Court to bastardize our laws, and that's exactly what they've done.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And go ahead. Go ahead.
What is this country gonna be in the next 20 years, 25, 30, whatever years? Not too long from now.
Well,
so to speak, with this kind of stuff, and by the way, right now, as we know, Trump is still leading the pack big time.
Yeah.
And some people still think that he belongs in the White House.
Well, for the people out there who aren't old enough to remember the 50s, read about the 50s, because that's what they're trying to take the country back to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah. And
that's what the country's coming to.
Oh yeah. And one of the things is that right now it's more racism now than it was in the late 50s and 60s, I would say.
I don't know if you could say more, because I don't know how you measure, but
it's
it's just as pervasive now as it's ever been.
Yeah.
I'll say
And
that.
there was a time when people were quiet with it.
Yeah.
But they're not quiet anymore.
Well, see, now they've got weapons, and
chomping out the bit to use them.
Yeah, and we got these groups in different places, and hey, they're ready.
Yeah.
They're ready.
Chomping at the bit.
Yeah.
Chomping at the bit.
Yeah.
Ready to fight, ready to bring up anything that Trump wants in this country to destroy anybody who stands in his way.
And anybody who's not, if you are not a right winger, they don't like it, All right.
Now, one good thing, I have another place to go to.
Okay, my time is up, but we could go on and on. My name is Ahmad Shakarakin, and we catch you at the next block for more street talk. Peace.
Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power, and I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.